This time, something unusual happened in the auto world. While everyone has been busy talking about electric vehicles, charging stations, and battery ranges, BYD quietly introduced a hybrid engine that didn't look revolutionary at first glance. No flashy claims, no dramatic launch, but as details started leaking out, the industry began paying attention. Because this wasn't a normal hybrid, and it definitely wasn't a full EV either. It sat right in the middle, almost like BYD was asking a dangerous question no one else wanted to ask. What if the future isn't fully electric yet? At first, the announcement barely made waves. Another hybrid engine didn't sound exciting in a world obsessed with EVs. But then reports started surfacing. Claims of extreme fuel efficiency, real-world range numbers that sounded almost unrealistic. And a system designed not for tech enthusiasts, but for people who were tired of charging anxiety and rising fuel prices at the same time. Suddenly, automakers weren't laughing anymore. Because if this worked the way BYD suggested, it could disrupt both petrol cars and EVs in one move. And that's where the real story begins. To understand why this matters, you first need to understand BYD itself. Because this company didn't arrive here by accident. BYD wasn't born in a car factory. It started in 1995 in China as a battery company, quietly supplying batteries for mobile phones during the era of Nokia and Motorola. While others were focused on devices, BYD was obsessed with chemistry, efficiency, and longevity. At the time, no one imagined that a battery supplier would one day shake the global auto industry. But that early focus would later become BYD's biggest weapon. In 2003, BYD made a move that confused almost everyone. It entered the automobile industry. Critics were quick to dismiss it. A battery company building cars sounded like a bad joke. But BYD wasn't trying to compete like traditional automakers. It was thinking vertically. Batteries, motors, electronics, software, all under one roof. Over the years, that strategy started to pay off. BYD didn't just become a car brand. It became an energy company that happened to sell vehicles. Fast forward a few years, and BYD began drawing serious attention with innovations like the Blade battery. This wasn't about flashy range numbers. It was about safety, durability, and reducing real-world risks like battery fires. While other companies chased headlines, BYD focused on trust, and that same mindset would later shape its approach to hybrids. When the EV race accelerated globally, most companies went all in. The narrative was simple. Petrol is outdated. Electric is the future. But BYD paused and asked a harder question. Is that future arriving at the same speed everywhere? In big cities, EVs made sense. Charging stations were growing. Infrastructure was improving. But outside urban centers, the reality looked very different. Long highway stretches with no chargers, small towns with unstable electricity, entire regions where EV ownership still felt risky. And then there was cost. EV prices were dropping, but not fast enough for the average buyer. Batteries were expensive. Replacement fears were real. Resale value was uncertain. BYD noticed something important. People wanted efficiency, but they didn't want stress. They wanted savings, but not at the cost of reliability. That's where hybrids stopped looking like a compromise and started looking like a solution. Instead of treating hybrids as outdated tech, BYD redesigned the concept entirely. Its hybrid systems were built with an electric-first philosophy. The petrol engine wasn't the star anymore. It was a backup player. In city traffic, the electric motor did most of the work. Quiet, smooth, efficient, when speed increased or power was needed. The engine stepped in, often not to drive the wheels directly, but to support the system and keep the battery charged. The transition was automatic. No buttons, no modes. The driver didn't need to think. The car did. This design changed everything. In daily driving, the experience felt familiar, like a normal petrol car. But the fuel gauge moved slower. The engine ran less. And braking energy that used to disappear was now stored and reused. The result wasn't just better mileage on paper, but consistency in real-world conditions. Traffic, highways, slopes, all handled without effort. And that's what made people pay attention. Of course, whenever new technology appears, fear follows. Hybrids sound complex. 2 systems instead of 1. Double the chance of failure, right? But BYD approached this differently. Because the engine ran less, it faced less wear and tear. Less heat, less stress. That meant longer life. The battery, smaller than a full EV's, wasn't constantly pushed to its limits. Charging and discharging were balanced automatically. And regenerative braking reduced brake wear, cutting maintenance costs over time. Servicing didn't suddenly become complicated either. Oil changes, filters, standard components remained familiar. And the biggest reassurance came from redundancy. If the battery ran low, the engine was there. If fuel was scarce, electric power could still cover short distances. The car wasn't dependent on one system alone. That sense of backup mattered more than any spec sheet. What truly made this strategy powerful was its global relevance. BYD didn't design this hybrid for one country. In Asia, where charging networks fade outside major cities, hybrids offered freedom. In developing regions where reliability and costs mattered more than innovation, they felt practical. In rural areas, where charging stations are still a dream, hybrids worked without demanding change. And in markets where fuel and electricity prices fluctuate wildly, the system adapted automatically. Some countries pushed EVs hard. Others offered little support. Infrastructure grew unevenly. BYD's hybrid approach allowed flexibility. It didn't depend on subsidies. It didn't require perfect conditions. It worked in today's reality, not tomorrow's promises. Pricing played a critical role too. BYD didn't position hybrids as luxury experiments. They were designed to sit between petrol cars and EVs. Affordable to buy, cheaper to run, balanced in ownership cost. In city driving, fuel savings were immediate. On highways, efficiency remained stable. The numbers didn't rely on ideal conditions. They showed up in daily life. And quietly, this created pressure. Not an open battle with EV brands, but a subtle shift in buyer thinking. Why rush into a full EV if a hybrid delivers most of the benefits without the risks? In markets where EV adoption is slow, hybrids don't just coexist, they compete. They delay the all-electric leap by offering comfort and confidence instead of forcing change. For the average buyer, the questions are simple. How much will I spend each month? Will my car leave me stranded? Will it still be worth something years from now? BYD's hybrid system feels like it was built around these questions. Lower fuel bills without changing habits. No charging stress, familiar driving. And stronger resale confidence because there's still an engine under the hood. In the end, BYD isn't saying EVs are wrong. It's saying the future isn't uniform. Some places will go electric faster. Others will take longer. And during that transition, hybrids might not just be a stepping stone. They might be the smartest answer for millions of people. While others chase purity, BYD is betting on realism. And that quiet bet might be the one that reshapes the road ahead. And that's where things get really interesting. Because if this approach works at scale, it doesn't just change what people buy next year. It changes how the entire industry plans for the next decade. For years, the conversation has been framed like a race with only one finish line. Petrol on one side, full EVs on the other. But BYD is quietly suggesting there might be a third lane in between. One that doesn't demand sacrifice, patience, or blind trust in infrastructure that doesn't yet exist everywhere. What's making traditional automakers uneasy isn't just the technology itself, it's the timing. Hybrids like this arrive at a moment when many buyers feel stuck. They want to move forward, but not leap into uncertainty. They want savings, but not lifestyle changes. They want modern tech, but without becoming early testers. That hesitation is exactly where this system thrives. It doesn't force a decision. It eases one. There's also something psychological happening here. For years, buying an EV has felt like making a statement, a commitment to a future vision. Hybrids don't demand that mindset. They feel practical, not ideological. You're not proving anything to anyone. You're just choosing what works today. And for a massive portion of buyers, that mindset is far more appealing than chasing trends. Some industry watchers have started whispering that this could slow down EV adoption in certain markets. Not because EVs are bad, but because hybrids remove the urgency. If people can cut fuel costs, reduce emissions, and avoid charging stress all at once, why rush? These aren't confirmed claims, but the discussion is growing louder. especially in regions where governments are pushing EVs faster than infrastructure can realistically support them. What makes this even more disruptive is how quietly it's happening. There's no dramatic confrontation, no headlines declaring war on EVs, just buyers walking into showrooms, doing the math, and choosing the option that feels safer. And when millions of people make that decision independently, it sends a message no marketing campaign can override. Looking ahead, it's very possible that the next phase of mobility won't be defined by extremes. Not fully electric versus fully petrol, but adaptable systems that shift based on location, cost, and daily needs. In